Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In Surah Al-Araf, verse 17, Allah says, ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُم مِّن بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. And the translation of this verse is, then I will come to them from before them and from behind them and on their right and on their left, and you will not find most of them grateful. Now, in this episode, I wanted to talk about the whispers of shaitan and how they can contribute to OCD. Well, first of all, what is OCD? In simple terms, OCD behavior is when you obsess over a thought that enters your mind to the extent that it makes life difficult for you because you cannot think of anything else. So you keep thinking about that thought over and over and over again, and it eventually affects your behavior. So how can OCD behavior somehow be linked to the waswase of shaitan? The whispers that enter our mind are thoughts that are specially designed by Iblis to disturb our mental peace. Because as mentioned in this verse, Iblis challenged Allah after he was condemned to hell, and he told Allah that he will attack those who walk on the path of Islam from behind, in front, right, and left. Now, this description is actually very graphic. Iblis could have just said, Allah, I will attack your slaves. But by saying, Allah, I will attack them from the front, back, right, left, that gives the impression that he is constantly surrounding us and he is constantly trying to get us off the path of Islam. In fact, it is because of Iblis's persistence and his stubbornness that many people do actually give up on Islam. They become ungrateful to Allah and they destroy their akhirah. So how is this linked with OCD? Well, since Iblis is constantly surrounding us, he watches each and every move of ours. We cannot see him, but he sees us. So when we are getting up for prayers and we start our wuzu, he gives us a small thought. Did you really do your wuzu correctly? That's it. One simple whisper is all he gives. Now, a person with OCD will start to think about that thought over and over again. Did I do it right? They will think about it so much that they will force themselves to go and do the wuzu again. Then, as they're going to start the prayer, Iblis, who has just observed that his whisper worked, he will come back and he will give the same whisper again. Did you really do your wuzu right this time? Again, the person with OCD will start to think about it over and over again, and he will go and repeat his wuzu one more time. In the same way, when the prayer ends, Iblis gives the person a small thought. He says, were you really concentrating on the prayer? Now, the person with OCD thinks about this thought so much that he forces himself to get up and pray again. Iblis, now seeing that he has been successful, goes back and gives the person the same thought again. So the person repeats his prayer one more time. Eventually, a wuzu and prayer that should have taken 10 minutes takes hours. But of course, we can ask, what does Iblis gain from this? The person who has OCD becomes so exhausted after a couple of days because one prayer that should take 10 minutes takes him so long. And the minute he's done with that prayer, the next prayer starts. So he gets so exhausted that eventually he quits praying. Iblis is won. Now sometimes Iblis's waswase can actually give us very wrong thoughts about Allah. A person with OCD will keep thinking about those wrong thoughts over and over again, feeling so guilty that he will not be able to move on. In fact, as narrated in Sahih Muslim, there were once some Sahabas who complained to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, of such evil thoughts. And they said that these thoughts are so bad they were terrified of even uttering it. And the Prophet replied, are you really having these thoughts? And they said, yes. And he replied that this is a sign of Iman. In other words, what he was telling them is that you are definitely on the right path because that's why Iblis is bothering you so much. So what's the solution? Firstly, remember that no matter how much you repeat the wuzu or the prayer or anything that you are doing for Allah, it will never be perfect because perfection is only with Allah. There will always be some shortcoming, and that's okay. Allah doesn't ask you for perfection. He asks for effort and sincerity. So if there wasn't much focus in the prayer, it's okay. Try to focus more next time. That's it. Secondly, remember that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught the Sahabas that doubt does not cancel anything unless it becomes certain. If you are 100% certain that you did the wuzu incorrectly because you specially remember doing it incorrectly, then go and do your wuzu again. If you're not 100% sure, you're 90% sure, 80% sure, then in Islam it is counted as a valid wuzu. You do not have to go and do it again. Your wuzu is valid. Thirdly, remind yourself that Allah is incredibly forgiving and merciful, and He loves the slave that has trust in His mercy and compassion. So even if you did make a mistake in any of your rituals, pray to Allah, ask Him to forgive you, and that's it, move on. And finally, remind yourself that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has made clear to the Sahabas that your thoughts will not be questioned until and unless you act upon them. So if you're having bad thoughts, ignore it, distract yourself. You are not destined for Jahannam, and it's not even something that will be recorded in your books. Allah is most merciful. He knows what Iblis is up to, so don't be too hard on yourself. If you focus too much on these thoughts, you will forget Allah's mercy and compassion, you will forget the teachings of the Prophet, and you will abandon Islam. And that is exactly why Iblis told Allah that most of your servants you will find ungrateful. So don't prove Iblis right. Discard these thoughts, distract yourself with something else, and remind yourself that Allah is the most merciful. He understands what your enemy is up to. Assalamu alaikum.